and welcome back to yet another Candid Conversations with a Housewife. I am your housewife, Mrs. Jenny. And friends, this has been a very interesting week. This has been a very eventful week. And so yesterday on my home channel, I started off my show talking about what happened to me yesterday and how I had a very interesting marriage moment that I thought was so teachable and encouraging for you guys. And so I'm going to share it over here. And because I kind of left out an important part that anyone who might have gotten confused. So I'm going to retell the story. So yesterday, my husband and I went to go. Well, my husband needed me to go title and register our new car that we got. New to us, that is. It's a used car. But so I needed to go do that. And so this was all transpiring first thing in the morning. So he had to be at work at 9. And then I was supposed to go to the gym at 11. And so he leaves for work. And we had already agreed that I was going to go to handle the titling and registration of the car. And so I'm in the house and I'm moseying, I'm taking the dogs out, I'm eating breakfast. And like at 10 o'clock, he calls me and he's like, "Hey, do you mind if would you mind going to the DMV before you go to the gym?" And I said, "Yes, I would mind." Why would I do that? I'm gonna be rushing at that point because my class is at 11. I'm eating breakfast, I'm not dressed yet. I didn't plan on doing that beforehand. I was going to go to my class and then go to the DMV and then go to his job and give him the paperwork for the car. He's like, "Yeah, but I just want to get it out of the way firsthand. And, I just want this to be over with. And I want that to be the first thing that you do for the day. So can you just do it first?" And I'm like, "No." This would throw off my whole schedule for the morning. I don't want to do that. So there's no need for me to do that. And he's like, "Well, there's other gym classes. You can just go to the one tomorrow. It's okay." And I'm like, "Why do I need to uproot my whole morning schedule just to do something that is not urgent?" Get into an argument. Eventually, he's like, "Can you just do this for me, please?" And I said, "I'll see what I can do. I'm not making any promises." And that's usually how I will end an argument. So that way, it's like I'm not being held to one thing. I don't want to definitively say no multiple times because you say that one time, but I don't want to end the conversation on "No, I am not going to obey you," because that's not right. That's not what I come up here every week, well, every other week, and try to encourage you guys to do, you women to do. So I said, "I'll see what I can do." I'm already talking like a mom. Okay, because don't moms say that? We'll see. They're famous for "we'll see." It's a possibility. We'll talk about it later. So that's why I said, I said, "We'll see. I'll see what I can do." And so I get off the phone and I stop eating my sandwich, jump up, rush out the house. Thankfully, the pajamas that I was wearing don't really look like pajamas. They look like a regular dress. And so went to the DMV. I tried to go to a DMV Select, which is a DMV that only handles a small number of things. So it's a lot more streamlined and you can get in and out a lot faster usually. But the one I went to was not a DMV Select. So I went to a real DMV and I waited an hour. And so everything got resolved. I did everything like I, needed to. It was very, painless. I had all my paperwork that I needed. But something else that I needed to get done was I needed to talk to somebody at the DMV about another issue with another car, which was a few months ago, back in May, we sold a car that we had. And when we sold it, we didn't take the plates off of it, which you are always supposed to do. Okay. Always take your plates off of your car before you sell it to anybody. So that way you can turn those into the DMV and that way they know you don't have that car anymore and people can't, play GTA in a car that has your plates on it. Okay. But we didn't do that. And but we did take the car for our insurance because we're like, we don't have this car anymore. And so the DMV had been mailing me letters saying, "Hey, we got notified that you have a car that's not insured because in Virginia you have to have insurance on your car, even if it's not being driven. Like even if you have like a broke down car, like a car that has no engine in it, you still have to have like a special insurance for like non-driving vehicles or something. Like Virginia is just so annoying." And so I was ignoring the letters. I wasn't really giving them much mind because I was like, oh, it's whatever. They'll figure out that I don't still have that car anymore. Well, they sent me a letter like a month ago saying your license is going to be suspended on the 12th of on the 12th of September if you don't turn in a notarized bill of sale or pay this fine or something. And so I'm like, oh man, I can't afford to pay this fine. So what am I going to do? And so we had the bill of sale, but we had to get it notarized. And this is what I forgot in yesterday's telling of the story because I didn't mention that the bill of sale had to be notarized. And so yeah, the DMV said that the bill of sale had to be notarized. And so okay, I'm like, okay, I'll go to the DMV and I'll go to a notary and get it notarized. Turns out, okay, fun fact, when you get something notarized, you have to have both parties who signed the document in person at the notary to get something notarized. I don't know what notarizing something means, but that's what has to happen. You have to have both parties involved. So try to contact the guy we sold the car to. Turns out he's in the middle of the ocean because he's in the military and he's on a ship. And so I'm like, great, what am I going to do now? And so, yeah, going back to yesterday when I was at the DMV, I asked the woman, what should I do? I don't have the ability to get this document notarized because the person is not physically able to come with me to the notary. So she said, okay, well, call Richmond. That's the main head branch of the DMV for Virginia and ask them what you should do. Call the Richmond DMV branch. And they said that, our records are showing that your situation has been resolved. Are they? What do you mean? And she said, on our end, everything has been fulfilled and there's no need for any other, there's no need for anything else. Like everything that we need, we got from you. Guys, I didn't do anything. I didn't send over anything. I didn't talk to anybody. All I did was talk to the woman at DMV. Now, she was typing something in her computer when I told her that we had sold the car back in May. But she didn't say that she handled it for me. She seemed just as confused as I was. And so when I called the Richmond branch, I'm thinking like, what do you mean it's all handled? Like, what happened? And so I haven't told my husband this. I don't want him to get a big head. However, I believe that because I did what I was supposed to do and I obeyed my husband, and then by extension of obeying my husband, I was obeying God, okay? Because the only reason that we're supposed to obey our husbands is because God told us to. I believe that God blessed me by having that situation be resolved. Now, of course, I can't prove that. It could have just been a fluke in the system, whatever. But I like to think that my Heavenly Father was looking out for me and he just knew that, oh, this poor idiot. Once again, the buyer and they're selling their cars, not doing all the proper paperwork and not jumping through all the right hoops, and just looking out and helping us because I would have really been in a pickle had my license been suspended because I need to drive. Like right now, I'm dog sitting, and so I need to get to my customers' houses. I need to, go to church. I need to run errands. I got to go to the store. I got to do stuff. Okay. I don't live in a city. I live in a suburb. I have to drive places. So that would have really been inconvenient if my license had been suspended. And so it doesn't make any sense. I told my mom this story earlier. She was like, oh, wow. They just said it was resolved. Like Kane in the comments says the DMV is the worst. The DMV is not known for just having stuff, resolved and settled out of nowhere. If anything, you do all the right stuff and you fill out all the right paperwork and, someone doesn't get it to the right desk in time and then your license still gets suspended. So if anything, you do all the right stuff that you're supposed to do and things still don't work out in your favor. And so the fact that that happened, I just was like, you know what? That was good. Whatever happened, I believe that God was looking out for me. But, because at the end of the day, who knows if that would have happened had I just said, no, I'm not going to go before class. I'm going to go after class. And, maybe I wouldn't have gotten that same lady who I got at the DMV, or maybe, just whatever would have happened. Things worked out and I obeyed my husband and everything was good. So I wanted to give you guys that encouragement that, we as wives, that we're going to get orders and commands that we don't like, that we think are, dumb, to say the least, from our husbands, but we need to obey. That is the right thing to do. And when we do, that God will see that, and God is not slack counting, the things that we're doing. Like everything that we do, he sees, okay? And whether we get rewarded in this life or in the next life, God sees all. Okay, so your good deeds are not going unnoticed, even if it might feel like it, they're not. And that really ties in for tonight's theme, because what we're going to be talking about tonight is Coach CGA's, well, Coach Greg Adams' marriage wheel. Okay, so I know a couple of you, Trey's not here yet. I know Trey, he's a big fan of Coach Greg Adams. Coach Greg Adams, he's a pretty big name over here on YouTube. He is, the 12-time demonetized champ. He has had all these different channels that have sprung up and been extremely popular, but YouTube is trying to grind him down. And he's a red pill, MGTOW kind of guy. MGTOW stands for men going their own way. He doesn't, I don't know if he doesn't subscribe to the name of being a passport bro. He's not opposed to that, but he thinks that there's plenty of, good fish in the sea over here that, because his whole thing is that he really discourages men from getting married. He's like, marriage is a racket now, it's not worth your investment, and you're better off just being a free agent. Okay, so he kind of coined this term, the free agent lifestyle, where men, they just focus on themselves, focus on bettering themselves, focus on getting money, focus on acquiring skills and talents and developing their personality. And, whenever they get that carnal need, they just go down to a junior college. He likes to call it the JUCO. And, they go there and get their, needs met. And that's how they operate. And they never get too close to any one woman to where she can start manipulating them and destroying their lives. And so I listened to a lot of his content. He does these like morning and evening night live streams, and I've listened to quite a few of them. And so I feel like I have a pretty good balanced idea of what he thinks. And so, he's not, even though he is an admitted, he's not an advocate for marriage. He doesn't think that men should get married, but he understands that of course men are still going to do that, because that's, people just do that. And so he tries to give people advice and guidance to maneuver marriage. And some of it is better than others, in my opinion. But we're going to talk about this marriage wheel today, because the marriage wheel is his idea of how a marriage will usually go. Pretty much 9 times out of 10, he says that a marriage is going to run this course. And what you'll see is that the marriage breaks down on the woman's end. Okay, the man is doing his part. The man is doing what he's supposed to do. And the marriage starts to crack and crumble on behalf of what the woman starts doing and how she starts behaving. And even though I know that my viewership is mostly male, I do want to do a especially honed in video for the wives and women who want to be wives, because the Bible says that we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay, and his is speaking of the devil. Let me pull this verse up so I can actually quote it to you guys. Okay. It is 2 Corinthians, hold on. 2 Corinthians 2:11, which says, lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. Okay. So yes, we as married women do not want Satan to have the advantage over us. And so we need to not be ignorant of his devices. And then, because he did, what I was really supposed to do today was I was going to review a video, like a stream that he had did all about the marriage wheel. And we were going to hear him speak in his own words and then kind of like talk about what he said. But I went back to go get the video and it had been completely dumped down the memory hole. Like I saved it in a file, in a playlist, that I have for content, things that I want to talk about. I put it in my content folder. I put it in my watch later. I went to both of those. It was gone. I looked it up on his YouTube channel. That was, the channel wasn't gone, but it was gone off the channel. I mean, I couldn't find it anywhere. So, like, where'd the video go? I just watched it and now it's gone. But anyways, so this is gonna have to suffice. But um, but yes, and so oh yes, there it is. Thank you, Kat. Um, and so yes, friends, we as married women, we need to know what our common. Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Was that in the video that I watched? You can do a live stream chat playback, and I'm looking at the live chat as it was going on at the time, and it was just full of men saying like, "Oh yes, this is so right. Coach is spot on. Coach is dropping knowledge. This is exactly. I had a marriage that was just like this. My marriage was like this. Oh, my first and second marriage ended like this." And so this is not something that's happening in a vacuum. Okay, this is a very common experience of men that will go through what he's talking about. And so obviously, these are common pitfalls for women, for wives to fall into. And we should not be ignorant of that. We need to be proactive. Or if you feel like you might already be slipping into this, if you're a wife and you need to be reactive and start snapping yourself back in shape, and then we can be better wives and leave a better mark on society's idea of marriage. Because right now, marriage is in shambles. Marriage is PR, marriage is public image, marriage's reputation is really on the rocks. Okay. A lot of people who are married, they make marriage look bad. And so marriage's public image needs a lot of work. so, um, and so, it, we have to do the change. We have to be the change that we want to see. And so we need to be, people on the ground level, wives right now, putting in the work to change the narrative about marriage, because it really is mostly falling on the wives' end. And I think that that's really true. So David, you can pull up the picture now. And that I think that when it really comes to who has strayed and made marriage as unappealing as it is, it has fallen on the part of the wife. So thank you very much. All right, so this is the wheel. Okay, this is the whole wheel. I snagged this thankfully because he talks about it kind of frequently on the channel, from a stream I was watching where he was talking, and so I pulled this from that. So if it's a little blurry, I apologize. I tried to find it on just Google Images, but it wasn't pulling up, so I had to just take a screenshot of it when he was talking about it. And so we're going to go in each one of these steps and talk about them. But of course, the first ones are fine, but really it starts to take a nosedive when we get to step 3. But we'll get there. And so let's jump into this. Okay. Okay. And so here we have phase 1. Okay. Phase 1 is the connection phase. So everyone, well, most people have experienced something like this. It's the engagement, planning, wedding, honeymoon period. This is when you meet somebody. Okay. Obviously, connection. And so when you meet somebody, you like them, things are going well. You guys get butterflies when you see each other. People have said that when you meet someone when you're dating, or like before you guys get married, then you're meeting their representative. So you're meeting this person that they want you to think that they are, and you're meeting this person that they want to, they wish that they were. They're the best version of themselves, as inaccurate as that might actually be. That's who you're meeting during this phase. A lot of people have, said that. And so this is, when you guys are dating, this is when you're courting, this is when, you get engaged because you're like, oh man, I really found the one. This is going to be great. We're perfect for each other. Love has never known a greater couple. And, we're just perfect, and life is going to be amazing, and all this stuff. And you're talking about plans for the future. And it's just such a beautiful, time. I look back on this time when my husband and I, Mario, were going through our connection phase. And, it's just so fun because it really wasn't that long ago. And just to look back on it and to like reminisce on all the corny stuff that we were doing and how we were acting. And it's just like, what in the world? Like, my husband, I mean, I'm talking like we've been married for like a decade. So just 3.5 years ago, okay. Um, and so my husband, he'll still come to me. Like earlier, he came to the house that I'm staying at because he has to stay at our house because there's a dog at our house that he needs to watch. So we're apart right now. But he came and stopped by earlier. And he was like, I can't believe you're really my wife. Like, I can't believe we're actually married. Like, why did you marry me? And I was like, that's a good question. And so, he just looked back on, we have this running joke in our marriage. I wish I had the text messages. I only have a screenshot of the messages from a video that I made like right after we got married. So thankfully I posted it in the video. But our first text messages that we ever sent to each other, it was him texting me first, and he was like, "Hey, it was nice to meet you today." And I was like, "Oh, thanks," and all this stuff. And he said that like I looked really pretty, that I looked, really nice. And I didn't think that I looked that nice. I had, my hair was like all over the place. It was like in a twist out, so it was like all fuzzy and wild looking. And I just kind of had like a tank top on and like this skirt. The skirt was great. The skirt was really cute, in my opinion. But I didn't think I looked that great overall when I met him. So he was telling me how cute he thought I was when he met me. And I was like, "Oh, you must like the wild look," referring to my hair. And he said the corniest thing. He said, I don't perceive, like, he was, I wish I had like had it memorized, but basically it was just like, I don't perceive my beautiful black queen as being wild. Like, oh, okay. Like, bro is laying it on pretty thick already. You're like, from the jump. And so so we always have this running joke, like the day before I get my hair done, and I take all my hair out and I wash my hair before I go get my hair done, or just like back when I was in my first trimester and I was sick all the time and I wasn't getting my hair done. Yeah, it worked. Hey, say what you want. It was corny. We admit that, but hey, it's effective. Okay, so take that information with how you will. And so like anytime that my hair is not done, he'll just like he'll look at me and he'll be like, I like the wild look. Or it's just so silly. And we always just like have this inside joke of, he likes the wild look, because that was what I said to him when we first met. So yeah, just little stuff like that, that you'll have for, the rest of your relationship. That's cute, and it's just this time of when you just start getting to know each other and, build your relationship. And it's just so cute and fun. Okay. So I think this is where everybody can agree that this is great. You guys are getting along the best you're ever going to get along, maybe, sadly. um, and, uh, and so, yes, this is the connection phase. Okay, so everybody's familiar with that. And good to see you, couples light. He says love is in the hair. Hey, something about this Nubian queen hair. Let him tell it. So lame. And so moving down to the investment phase. Might need to, oh, hold on. Oop, hold on. Let me see here. Okay. Yeah. I can't get it right. Okay. We're just gonna have to leave right there. So, okay, so this is the investment phase. And so this is after you guys ride off into the sunset, at your wedding, and you actually start building your life together. Okay. And so he says that it's spending money on, family trips, school activities, hospital costs, children, house, car, bills. And so as for me in my house, we are here, like that sticker that you used to see in the mall. It's like, you are here. So my husband and I, we are absolutely fixated, square in the middle of the investment phase. Okay. We're about to have our first baby. Like I said in the beginning, we're buying and selling cars, and we're about to move. We're not buying a house, but we're about to move to a different place and get more stabilized in that regard. So we took a little family trip a few months ago. That's on my channel. You can check that out. We went to Pennsylvania. So just things like this, we're trying to get in our debt-free era. We're in the process of paying off some debt. Thankfully, neither of us went to college, so we don't have a ton of debt. So we're working on that. So we are just smack dab in the middle of this investment phase. And so things are still usually pretty good at this time. Okay. Um, People are happy because they're having kids and they really feel like, they really feel like, they're a team and, they're buying a house together and, they're getting, their cars and, they're helping each other pay off their debt. And, I guess depending on the dynamic of the marriage, whether or not the wife is working as well, or if it's just the husband working, but you guys just feel like you're a team, you're in this, you're locked in, your head is down, you're focusing on building your relationship and getting off on a really good foundation of your marriage, because in the connection phase you were starting off on your foundation of your relationship, but here in the investment phase you're building the foundation for your marriage. And so, you're trying to just focus on things, or at least this is how I perceive it. Okay. And maybe other people don't perceive it this way because, we're about to fall off the cliff in the next phase. Okay. But this is how I see the investment phase. I see the investment phase time period as a time where, okay, like, we just need to hunker down, buckle down, get everything stabilized, and just focus on building our foundation. Okay. And so, and I guess that's one of the reasons why I feel like divorce is just so far out of the question. Like it would just, I mean, because I already don't believe in divorce, just off rip. But I mean, I don't have time to think about divorce. I'm thinking about, how we can get linked up with a local farmer and start getting whole chickens and, half a pig and half a cow, where can I put a deep freezer in our new house? And, how we're going to raise our son and, are we going to cloth diaper and are we going to homeschool and all this stuff and, focusing on paying off our debt and balancing our budget and all this stuff. Like the last thing on my mind is jumping out of my marriage. Like what in the world? I feel like this investment phase, because when he says investment phase, he's talking financially, primarily. But kids, I guess they're a financial and they're an emotional investment as well. But yeah, I'm just focusing on like getting everything, started right. I don't want to have to, struggle any more than I need to. I've already kind of because I feel like your marriage is kind of broken up into different phases unrelated to this. And so, your pre-kid marriage is one phase, and then now we're entering into the kid phase of our marriage. And so I want to kind of put some things behind us that were from our pre-kid phase. And so, I'm just focusing on, closing out this chapter of our relationship on a good note so that we can start the next one on a positive note and like just all this stuff. Like, what? I mean, it's like I'm thinking about, I'm thinking about investing into the marriage. Well, he would say that this is the time when the man is investing into the marriage. And he said that a lot of women they will get advice from the older women in their life, like, okay, like, because I mean, all of this is on a very subjective timeline as well. Like my husband and I, we were like, we were dating like it was a race. Okay, so we met, and then 5 months later we got married. But some people they date for like a year or two or 10, and so that connection phase can last however long it's going to last, and then the investment phase can last however long it's going to last. And so, but older women will advise a lot of younger women. Thankfully, I don't have any older women in my life who are that nuts. But a lot of them will say like, hey, in case anything doesn't work out, you can't leave him before you get kids out of him. Okay. Because kids are like, these, like the term anchor baby. I think that's like a derogatory term towards immigrant kids. Since it's saying like they're anchoring them to the country. But a lot of women, they'll have these anchor babies to anchor themselves into the marriage. And so that way, in case things do go south, then they have these little paychecks that they can, string and drag the husband along and milk him for every last dollar they can get out of him. Okay. And so that's how, the investment phase it goes, and and what kind of things are going on in that time period. And things are still usually on the surface, at least, very happy and exciting, and lots of joy is going on in that relationship. And so that might last for maybe like 10 to 15 or 20 years, depending on how many kids they have or what kind of lifestyle they're trying to live or what have you. Okay. And so let's bring it over here. Okay, so now this is where we're going to park it for a little bit, okay? Because now this is where things start to go left. All right. Um, and okay. So phase 3 is the bait and switch phase, okay? And so here he says that the bait and switch phase, it starts off with your wife becoming a feminist. Okay, red flag right out of the gate. And then, due to her becoming a feminist, the husband, he starts to maybe work 80 hours a week. Wife becomes unhappy. Wife starts having girls' nights out, affairs, marriage counseling, less of the marriage building exercise, and no more. Okay. So like I said before, this guy's a little crass. And like Couples Light said, this is from a very secular perspective. This is not a Christian man by any regard. So there's that. But yeah. And so what you'll see is that the kind of the linchpin of this scenario, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but it revolves around the wife turning into a feminist. Okay. And so, like I said, the point of this is so that we as wives, or we as women who want to be wives, can know the common pitfalls. Okay. So like I said, coach said that, this is kind of what happened in his marriage. He's known lots of men who happened in their marriage. The chat was full of men who said that it happened in their marriage. And so this is not something that's just, anecdotal, totally just like rare. This is happening a lot. Okay. And I feel like I can see it, on TikTok. All these different women talking about, what they're so proud and boasting about what they're not going to do for their husband and what they stopped doing for their husband, once they had kids or something. And it's like, yikes, that marriage is headed up for the rocks. And so, being that this is a really pivotal point in the marriage where the woman is becoming a feminist, what can we as women do to prevent ourselves from falling into this trap? Well, being that, if you're not new around here, you probably can guess what I'm going to say is the first thing, but you got to be prayed up. Okay. You got to be in your word. You got to be in your Bible, King James Bible, uh, and you need to be, around other women who are, actively trying to do that same thing as well. And so I'm so thankful for the friend group that I have right now. I'm surrounded by a lot of really lovely ladies who are wives or moms as well. And then my best friend, my longest running friend, she's not a wife, but she is a long-term girlfriend. And so, she is still someone who respects my relationship, is not going to just be someone who is encouraging me to jump out of my marriage. Okay. And a lot of married women make the mistake of hanging out often and having close friendships with single women. And I think this is a very bad move. Okay. Now a lot of women will say that, oh, well, just because I get married doesn't mean I need to cut off all my single friends. What if I'm the first one to get married? Well, I mean, at the end of the day, you have to decide, what do you want? Okay. So what do you want out of your marriage? And are you going to do whatever it takes to have the best marriage that you can have? And I would say, I guess it's debatable. I mean, I would feel like it's not debatable because we have the statistics to show that, this is problematic. But women who are often hanging out with single women, you are the median of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And so it's foolish for a married woman to be spending excessive amounts of time with single women, because inherently single women and married women do not think the same. They don't operate the same. They don't move the same. And so if you're hanging out with all these single women, you are going to start thinking in a single mindset as well, that how you used to think. And that's not conducive to your marriage. Okay. So I'm very thankful. I have one friend that comes to mind, that I've been hanging out with a lot lately. Shout out to her. It's funny because her husband and my husband became best friends and started hanging out like every single day. And then my husband started taking me over to the house when he would go because he wanted, to at least try for the wives to be friends since he and the husband are really good friends. And so thankfully it worked out. And she is, extremely cool. And they have two wonderful little kids. And I love hanging out with her. And she is super committed to her marriage. And so she encourages me to be committed in my marriage. And I give her encouragement. And we just feed off of each other. And and we become super close, and where we've divulged very intimate things about our relationship to each other, and we're just steadily encouraging each other. And she'll tell me about something that her husband did, and I'm like, yeah, but oh, and also I got this girl saved. So the first time I met her, we were talking like all night, and I ended up getting her saved. So praise God for that. And so she's not active in her faith walk. She doesn't. I'm working on that. She is working on that, but I did get her saved. And so, we'll talk about Christian things, and I'll tell her, she'll tell me about something that her husband did that wasn't great. And I'm like, we as Christians, we are supposed to have grace with each other. We're supposed to have grace with our spouse, especially, God, he's very merciful. His mercies are new every morning. We should be understanding and just be long suffering with our husband. Um, and so, it's unfortunate that he did that, but God will bless you if you just continue to love him and love on him. And she'll tell me the same thing. I'll tell her about something Mario did. And she's like, oh, well, I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. He's such a nice guy and he's great. Doing drive-by baptisms. um, but yeah, and she encourages me, and she talks me off the cliff. And so that's great, and that's how it should be. Okay, and so this is a very good way of combating the brain virus of feminism that can sneak up in a lot of women. Okay, so not having a lot of close single friends. Another thing too is that being that we're living in the digital age, and that it's not just about who you physically hang around, but it's about what content you absorb. A lot of married women are perfectly content in their marriage, and their marriage is totally fine. And then they get their brain attacked with a parasite known as TikTok and Instagram, and just comparison in general, because comparison is the thief of joy. And they start comparing themselves to these women online, and they start hearing these bitter women complain about things that are perfectly normal in marriage, perfectly justifiable behavior from men. And then these women who don't know any better, they're a little bit ignorant. Um, and they're like, oh man, my husband does that. I didn't know how bad that was. I'm gonna leave him. And so many women are being encouraged to leave their husbands for nothing. We have a new viewer, James. Hello, James. Good to have you. He says, who's CGA? So CGA is Coach Greg Adams. He's a very popular relationship, red pill, MGTOW guide over here on YouTube. So he likes to talk to men. His channel is male oriented. Red pill. And he likes to talk to men about how to live your best life, and don't get so fixated on women and just focus on you, and you'll be your best version. That's kind of his vibe. That's his corner. Hey Tony, good to have you. I'm so glad you're here after that dust up that we had earlier in the group chat. Oh my gosh. But yes. And so that's CGA. I wish I had a picture or a clip of him, but this is all I could do for now. Oh, okay. So he said he's familiar. Yes, great. And so yes, so like I said, hang around physically women who are like-minded as you, women who want to go the same place as you. So like, I bring it up kind of often how I used to be in Amway, and I don't really know how I feel about MLMs anymore. I'll probably do a stream about that at some later time. But what I do know is that I learned a lot of very valuable just success skills when I was in Amway. And one of the things that they taught us is that, like the thing I just said earlier about how you are the mean of the 5 people you hang around with the most. Um, and that if we want to get somewhere, we need to hang around people who are also going that same direction. And so, I as a wife, it would just be generally unwise for me to just be always surrounding myself, physically or virtually, with unmarried women or women who are unhappy, women who are always complaining, things like that. Okay. Um, and so we don't that's just, good advice in general. If you don't want to be broke anymore, you need to stop hanging out with all your broke friends because they're going to keep you broke. If you're trying to grow in Christ, you need to start hanging out with people who are wiser, further along than you in Christ. And, just anything, whatever you're trying to do, you need to get around people who are, um, who are in that same space. James, he says, so you really do enjoy being married? I do. And, I, of course, most of you will never actually meet me in person, so you'll never really get to talk to me or meet my husband. But I really honestly do enjoy being married. Every minute of it is not awesome. Like the story I gave at the beginning of the show, we got into this argument because he asked me to do something I thought was stupid. But overall, because you have to keep things in perspective, okay? And I think that this is another fatal flaw of a lot of women, is that we are very short-sighted, very emotional, impulsive, and you have to keep the big picture in mind. And I feel like that overall, my marriage is fine. That overall, we're a very good couple and things are good. And I enjoy being married. Every minute of it is not awesome. It's not always a picnic. But, looking back on my single life, I can remember plenty of days that it wasn't a picnic. Days where I would get up, go to work at the nail salon from 9 to 7, and then go home and be bored and put some freezer meal in the microwave and heat it up and eat it by myself, and then get on Tinder and then go on a date with some guy that was just some random guy who didn't really care about me, and then all he was trying to do was just get in my pants at the end of the night. And it's just like, this is just lame. Like, this is lame. I'm too old for this. Like, I'm like 21 thinking like, I'm too old for this, and it's like, no lifestyle is going to be 100% awesome all the time. Okay. People, they always want to advocate for one specific thing and say that this is the end all be all. And so when I advocate for marriage, I'm not advocating for it from a position of this is the most fun that you're going to have. This is the most exciting, lifestyle to live, being a housewife. Okay. So I don't try to advocate for it from that perspective. I try to advocate for it from the perspective of this is the most fulfilling, and out of every lifestyle that you can live, you're going to have ups and downs in all of them. But this is the one that will yield you the most consistent, fulfilling, and prosperous results, most of the time. And you'll get the most out of this. And it's the right thing to do because God told us to. So things like that, I try to come at it from that perspective. Because people say that, okay, well, being single is the end all be all. And then people say that being married is the end all be all. And then people say that not being married but not having kids is the end all be all. And then people say being married and having kids is the end all be. So like, there's so many different ways you can live your life, and people enjoy them to certain degrees. And they're not always going to show the parts where they're just sitting at home being bored and being alone and wishing that they had somebody or wishing that they had kids or whatever. So whatever lifestyle you choose to live, you have to just accept that and whatever comes with that. Okay. But yeah, to answer your question, I do enjoy being married. I think that it's the best scenario for me, and that it's overall the best that I can do. So yeah, I want to tell us another story, but I don't want to get too sidetracked. So maybe I'll save that for later. But anyways, and so yes. So here on the bait and switch side, it says that husbands work 80 hours per week. Okay, so the investment phase is not cheap friends. Okay, so we just went over the investment phase, and like it said, hospital bills, house, cars, kids, family trips. These things aren't cheap. Okay, you spend the investment phase racking up the credit card debt, and so now in the bait and switch phase, your husband, he's like, okay, well, I need to take on a second job. I need to start taking on more hours. I got to put in more. Do more to get more money flowing in the house. The kids are growing up, they're eating us out of house and home, whatever. And a lot of women, a lot of men say that women cannot be satisfied, that no matter what you do, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't, which is unfortunate because I understand where they're coming from. And so I know this is something that I could probably fall into. So like this, the whole point of this is to try to find the pitfalls that are easy to fall into and to avoid them. And so becoming discontented is not good. Okay. And so, like I said at the beginning, my husband and I were working on our financially stable era. Okay. And we're working on like being debt free and all this stuff. And so, obviously, he has to work a lot. And so, we're trying to not just pay for our monthly bills, but pay for things that, we accumulated in the past. And so it's not fair for me to, constantly harangue him, on the phone at work, like, what are you still doing at work? Or, what are you doing? And because he's a mechanic by trade. And so he might leave work and then go and fix somebody's car, or he might go leave work and then do some other side stuff, go sell something that he has. And so, he might be gone for a while. And, if I'm going to be the one who's talking about we need to get financially stable, then he has to go and make some finances to stabilize us. So it's not fair for me to, complain that he's gone if he's out making money. Um, and he's been threatening to possibly join the military. And so he was like, oh man, because his friend that I was just talking about, his best friend, he's in the military. And he was like, yeah, I could think about it. And, I would, we'd be like, doubling our income and our lifestyle and all this stuff, and it would be good. And I was like, I am not interested in you being on some ship for 9 months out of the year. Like, that does not sound good to me at all. James asked, how long have I been married? So 3.5 years. And so, yeah, like, so, but he's trying to think of, how can he make these moves to, better put us in a good position. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever you got to do, you still need to come home every night. Okay. So military is off the table. God the Son, Jesus Christ saves. He says, if he goes, join the Air Force. I have heard that. We live in a heavily Navy area, so that's what he was just initially thinking of. But I have heard that, Air Force is pretty good. It's pretty relaxed. But yeah, I just don't like the idea of him being gone, because at the very minimum, he's gonna have to be gone for boot camp, which is what, like 2 months, 3 months? I don't even know. I don't want him to be gone for that time, especially now that we have our little sprout on the way. But anyways, so there's that. Husband starts working 80 hours a week, and the wife is just discontent, and so she's upset that he's gone all the time. But then if he didn't work, then she would be upset that they didn't have enough money. Okay, so we as wives, we need to support our husbands in whatever they do, and we need to be agreeable, and we need to be understanding and lenient, with them, and not just, get on them all the time. We need to understand how to regulate our emotions. And so that way we're not, just, all over the place, and that our husband can satisfy us, and that our husband can work with us, and that he's not always just trying to, chase some ghost of, why is my wife never happy? And so, yes. And the next one is that, wife becomes unhappy. So, a lot of women now, I wish I had pulled up the stat on this, but a lot of women now are on antidepressants. Okay. A lot of middle-aged women, are on antidepressants. And so I guess emotional unregulation is rampant in the in females. And so I don't really know how to combat that entirely. I think that exercise and diet plays a very big role in your mental health, your emotional health. And so let it not be said that us of God's women, that we're, letting our physical health and our mental health fall by the wayside. And so let's try to keep ourselves up and stay in God's word, so that way we are not being happy necessarily all the time, but we're able to keep our emotions evenly keeled and balanced. Because at the end of the day, it's not your husband's responsibility to make you happy; it's your responsibility to make you happy. And happiness is kind of overrated anyway, honestly. Fulfillment and overall satisfaction with your life is what's more important, because happiness is fleeting. But that's for another stream. Okay, so there's that. And it says, wife starts having girls' nights out. Okay, so this is a big one. This kind of goes back to what I was saying about women hanging out with single women versus married women. Because, like, my friend that I have, the one that's married to my husband's best friend, she and I will go out. And one time we kind of had like a girls' night out. And it was so fun. We went to go paint pottery. So we had been like painting pottery for like the past couple of weekends, because we went to this place where we go to paint pottery, and then we would not finish it, so we would have to go back and continue to work on our pottery. And so one night we went to the place to go paint our pottery, and then they closed, and it was probably like 8 or 9 o'clock. So the place that we went to go paint our pottery, they were playing country music. And I told my friend, I was like, every time I hear country music, it makes me want Texas Roadhouse. And she was like, oh, I've never been there, but I've heard it's really good. I said, you've never been to Texas Roadhouse? What? Gosh. So I said, call your husband right now and ask him if you can go to Texas Roadhouse. And she was like, okay. And so she called him and he said it was fine. And I called Mario and he said it was cool. And so we went, and I took her, and it was so cute. And oh yeah, the buns are better than good. Oh my goodness. I hope that wherever you guys live, you have a Texas Roadhouse near you. It is so good. This message was brought to you in part by Texas Roadhouse. Oh my goodness, it is so delicious. And and it's funny that I'm saying that, because it's like a steakhouse, but I never get the steak when I go there. I usually get their chicken critter salad, which is just a really big salad that has like fried chicken pieces on it. Ew, it's so good. But anyways, yes, it is so great. And so we went there and we had dinner, and it was a lot of fun, and we talked. And then after that, I was dog sitting once again. I do quite a bit of dog sitting. And so she took me to the house that I was dog sitting at, and I invited her in to meet the dogs. And so she comes inside, and she's, playing with the dogs, and we're just sitting and talking. And by this time it's like 11 o'clock. And but we're just up chit-chatting, having a good old funky time. Y'all, she does not leave that house until 5 in the morning. Like, honestly. And so we're up talking all night. Maybe it wasn't 5. Maybe I'm ODing. Maybe it was like 4, but it was really late. Like, it was really, really late. And like we kept checking the clock, and we're like, it doesn't feel like it's 2 in the morning. It doesn't feel like it's 3 in the morning. And we just keep talking. And we're just talking about everything and anything. And so that was like the closest thing to like a girls' night out that I've had in a while. Went to go paint, went to go get some delicious Texas Roadhouse, and then we just sat up and talked all night. And so, things like that, those are wholesome, those are God honoring, those are great. We're just fellowshipping as sisters in Christ and encouraging each other, and everything's good, but and so I don't think that anyone will have an issue with that. But these girls' nights out that are typical are, you guys are going to a club, you guys are going to a bar, your friends are encouraging you to dress scantily, you guys are drinking, you're entertaining the flirtatious nature of other men. These are things that are harmful, red flags, danger zone. Okay. Now, even if you're personally not drinking and you personally don't get anybody's number, it's still not good, because evil communications corrupt good manners, or corrupt good morals. I forget the word. I think it's manners. Evil communications corrupt good manners. And so you have no business being out there anyway, and let not your good be evil spoken of. So what are you, as a married Christian, out doing at a bar or a club or anything like that? Okay. Late at night without your husband, it's just all wrong, folks. So, I feel like it was like a really big talking point, maybe like a year or two ago, people would like go up to people on the street and ask them like, would you let your girl go out on a girls' night, or would you let your girls take a girls' trip? And men are kind of more piping up and saying like, heck no, I would never allow that. And so women, they're like they're straw manning the argument by saying, oh, is the wife only ever supposed to just be barefoot and pregnant in the house all the time? Of course not. Women are allowed to have fun. Wives are still allowed to have fun. But if your only definition of fun is drinking and clubbing and, dressing like a slut, then that's a serious problem. Okay. Okay. Yeah. A couple's like, he says, with her sisters and her mom, that's also great, hanging out with your family, so, even if they're single, that's still okay to hang out with them. But, this idea of, married women going out on these exotic trips, going to Jamaica, going to Brazil, going to the Dominican Republic, going to Vegas. I honestly don't see a reason why any Christian would go to Vegas. I mean, personally, I'm not going to say that it's like a sin for a Christian to go to Vegas. I wouldn't get dogmatic about that. But I just don't really see the point. If you're a Christian, what are you going there for? Now, I know that they have some really good buffets, which is very tantalizing. But at the end of the day, you're going to sacrifice, some, you know, good environment to, just for the sake of, going to see some really good seafood bar. Especially if you're going out at night. Maybe things are better during the daytime. I don't know. But if you're going out at night in Vegas as a Christian, I think that's kind of unwise, but that's just me. But yeah, so going out on these trips, going out on these girls' nights out, they can quickly turn into something that is inappropriate and should be avoided from married women, especially Christian married women. Okay. Next one is affairs. Okay, so that kind of leads right into, the dangerous game of going out with your single friends. And, now not all single friends are created equal. A lot of single women, they'll see their married friend talking to a guy, getting a guy's number, and they'll confront her and they'll be like, what are you doing? You're married, put that back, or, throw that away. Like, you shouldn't do this. And they'll confront her, and praise God for that. That's a great, you should do that. Okay. But there are a lot of people who won't do that. Okay. And they'll just stand by idly or actively encourage it. Oh my goodness. Their married friend to commit adultery and to dishonor her vows. And so, that's another reason why men don't really like these girls' trips, because they might not be very fond of their wife's friends, which is unfortunate. Hopefully your wife would have enough discernment to have good friends around. But yeah, and so in this phase of, because this all goes back to like what I was saying about her becoming a feminist. And so she's thinking like, I've been cooped up in this house too long. I've been obeying you for too long. I need to go out and do me. Yikes. If your wife starts talking about, I need to go do me, that's a red flag. And so, she's thinking that, I've lost myself. I don't know who I am anymore. I need to go and, find myself, and I need to go and reconnect with who I used to be. And it's so funny, going back to my married friend, she was telling me that not long ago, she was kind of like looking back on pictures of herself and looking back on her life when, she was single. And she was like, I'm just not that person anymore. She was like, I am not that girl that I used to be. I'm someone totally different. Like, I am the mom of two. And I was like, yeah, you're totally different. And and I think that a lot of women don't ever really, they might come to that realization, but they come to it on the wrong end. So she came to that realization and she was like, yeah, like, I'm a different person, and that's okay. And I need to accept the changes that are happening in my life, and I need to move in a different way, and I need to operate different, being that I am different. But so many women find themselves on the end of the spectrum where they're like, yeah, I'm a wife now, I'm a mother now, and my life is totally different. And I need to try to go back to what I used to be. I need to go try to be who I used to be back when I was 17 or when I was 23. And it's like, no, you don't need to try to go do that. You need to just accept who you are now. Okay. And even I've experienced this, because the life that I was living when I was single is extremely different from how I'm living now, almost entirely. And I thought about it and I'm like, oh man, I look back on videos that I have on Snapchat or whatever, my friends and I out at karaoke or, going out to the ocean front and you're just hanging out. And it's like, oh man, that was so much fun. And I look back on that fondly, but I don't even want to do all that stuff anymore. Like, it's just I'm different now. I'm not that person. And so many women they're constantly trying to fight and get back this person that they used to be. And it's like you're not going to get it, rightfully so. They get it cuz they eventually just, throw their marriage down the toilet. But, we as people we're going to change with time and that's okay. And not only is that okay, that's how it's supposed to be. Okay? When I was a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things, okay? And so, as you get older and your circumstances change and your role in your life changes, then you just need to change with it, okay? Um, so next one is marriage counselors. Now I don't know. Okay, I don't know exactly what he kind of meant by this because I think that marriage counseling is overall a good idea for the most part. Um, because your marriage doesn't even have to be on the rocks for you to want marriage counseling. You could just do preventative maintenance. Um, but I mean, I guess usually when people do get marriage counseling, I guess that is because their marriage is in danger. And so, um, but then again, I mean, I don't know. A lot of counselors in general, a lot of like therapists are women, so it can seem biased. And a lot of men report that they don't feel very supported in therapy or in counseling because the therapist sides with the wife most of the time. So that's not good. You should try to seek a therapist that is, objective as much as they can be. Um, you know, so you guys are getting an equal shake on both ends. And so she's trying to drag you to marriage counseling, even though she's the one who had the affair. So why is she trying to take you to marriage counseling? Um, God, the Son, Jesus Christ saves. He says, save money and get a third party like family member or a friend. That's a very good idea. Thank you for that. Um, and he says they are basically there to debate the talk. Oh to moderate the talk. Um, yeah. But yeah, talking to a family member is a really good idea. And I tell my husband that whenever we have these big arguments, I'll call my parents to ask them how I could have better resolved this issue, how I could have done better to de-escalate, how where I went wrong, how I can move better in the next time. And he's like, I don't like you talking to your parents about the arguments that we have because then they're going to see me in a bad light. They're going to tell them the things that I said to you that I didn't mean, but I said when I was angry. And I'm like, they're not going to think that actually, because my parents are just more so invested in the sanctity and in the survival of my marriage more than they are in my temporal happiness. And I can say that totally objectively. Because they're most of the time, honestly, they're siding with him. So I know that they're not going to be like, oh, he's garbage. You should leave him. You were right. That almost never happens. Like that never happened. Where I call them and they're like, you were right, Jenny. It's usually I call them and they're like, oh, well, you could have done this. And you're the one who's been saved longer. So you should have known better. And it's like, you're supposed to be my parents. You're supposed to side with me. But I love that, honestly, because it's great that they're being objective and looking out for our marriage as a whole and not just trying to side with me. So very good point that God the Son, Jesus Christ saves has made. Hey, we got CT in the chat. I will be dropping the link when I'm done going over the wheel for if anybody wants to come up here and give their own anecdotal evidence or any add their 2 cents to the wheel. So there's that. So if you want to say something, to keep it in mind. But yes, and then the last two are pretty much the same. You're not having as much of the marriage building exercise, which is a serious problem, which we talked about I think 2 weeks ago with marriage obligations. And so after all this, and like I said before, and I can't stress it enough, how you think that you need to be in the mood to have the act. And so because you feel like you need to be in the mood, you need to be getting along in order to have that act. But in reality, if you have the act, then it will put you in the mood to get along better. Okay. Sometimes you do have to put the cart before the horse. And so, these marriages, the marriage bed will dry up because you guys have been fighting, because there's been, you guys aren't seeing each other as much because he's working, or because she had an affair, or because she is doing things you don't like, whatever. And so therefore that part of the marriage will start to die. And you guys are thinking like, oh well, I need to start organizing these cute little dates. I need to start buying her flowers. I need to start doing this, X, Y, and Z, cleaning up around the house to try to, ignite that area of our marriage again. When in reality, what should happen is that you guys should just do it anyway. And then it'll be easier to get that ball rolling in that area again, and actually liking each other. So I don't want to completely rehash the point that I made last time, but basically that, when you're married, having your marriage building exercise regularly is going to keep the heat down from your marriage and keep you guys from just like being at each other's throat. Because when you have that relationship with your spouse, it kind of makes you forget about things that they do that annoy you for the time being. And so it's like, oh well, this, we can work this out. It's not the end of the world. We're still married. I still love you. That kind of thing. And when you're having it regularly, you're constantly having that thought in your mind be replayed, where it's like, oh, it's not the end of the world. We can work this out. We're still married. So that kind of thing. And so that's important. And so let it not be said of the, Christian wives that we are letting our marriages, the marriage bed, fall by the wayside. That's a serious problem. And I'm sure I could talk about that all night, and lots of people could give their experiences on that, but there's that. All right. And then so moving up, so now we are at phase 4, which is the disengagement phase. Okay, so because you guys, in this scenario, you did not get the problem sorted out, and things just kind of continue to spiral down. You are now in the phase of divorce, family court, child support, counseling, alimony, lose your kids, lose your house, lose half your assets. Man, this is where you do not want to be. Fight with tooth and nail, as hard as you possibly can to not end up here. And I'm gonna be a little transparent about my own personal life. And so my parents, they're divorced. And my dad, he's told me this story a few times, like more than once, more than twice. He's told us this story, where how he and my mom were in the process, not they weren't officially in the process of splitting up, but they had talked about it and they were like on bad terms. And I think they were leaving somewhere, but he said that like they got in the car and my mom, like, she just made like this little, she said something to him and it'll just forever ring in his ears and in his mind. And I forget, I don't know all the details, but anyways, basically, long story short is that she was like, do you want to go to marriage counseling? And he was like, no. And she said, well, I don't want to either. And he thinks that, if he had just probably said yes, and they maybe had gone, then maybe the marriage could have survived and maybe they could have made it. And so, as married people, the number one, I don't know if it's the number one thing, but one of the main things that will destroy your marriage, okay, is having too much pride. And so he's told my brothers and I that story dozens of times. And so I think about that a lot. And I think about, being mindful of, always being forgiving and willing to extend the olive branch, and, not holding bitterness. Because that's where that came from, is that, him saying no like that was that it came from a place of bitterness. And we should not be bitter against our spouses. Okay. Especially the Bible says, husbands, be not bitter against your wives. And so, yeah, whatever you need to do, however you need to, lay your pride aside. And David Ruffin of the Temptations, over 50 years ago, he said, I'm not too proud to beg. Okay. So whatever you have to do to keep your marriage together, friend, that's good. And that's what you should do. Okay. Don't let your pride stand in the way of you keeping a good thing going or honoring God, because God hates divorce. And so, whatever needs to happen, then you need to do that. Oh, Lionel, good to see you. He said, "What did I miss?" We're talking about the marriage wheel, and so now we're closing near the end of the marriage wheel. But we still have quite a bit to go through with all these different points that are over here. So good to have you. Um, God, the Son, Jesus Christ saves, says, "Ladies, please, if your man is honorable, avoid putting him into the cursed child support system." Yes. So I've never, this is my first child, so I've never had a child that I was getting child support for. I've never put a man on child support, so I don't know a whole lot about it. But I have learned quite a bit about it in these last few months of watching information about it. I have a couple brothers who I think one of them just got off of child support because I think now he has custody of his daughter. But I have one brother who's on child support, and that's not fun. Um, and so, but yeah, and so if things are just too bleak, and you guys are just not, don't fix things, then you're gonna end up here in stage 4. And so started off with divorce. Okay, very unfortunate. You guys, are living separate. I know that in most states, I know at least a few states that married couples have to live separated for like at least 6 months or a year before they can get divorced. So you guys have probably already gone through that separation phase, and you're going through with the divorce and family court. And it's really not even divorce that really hurts a lot of people, because people, I mean, they get PTSD from divorce. I mean, a divorce can drag out for years. Okay, I did not know that. But depending on how much is involved and how much was built up in that investment stage that we talked about, a divorce can drag on for years, or how bitter one party is and how much they just want to squeeze out of you just for spite and vengeance sake. um it can really take a while. Couples Life says Las Vegas is the divorce capital of America. I don't know if that's true. I'm not saying you're wrong, but I've heard somewhere that actually Utah is like either number one or maybe they're number two, but Utah is really high in divorce as well. I don't know if you've heard that before. That surprises a lot of people, because Utah is like, what's going on in Utah? But yeah, Utah is really high on the divorce rate as well, surprisingly. But yeah, so divorce can drag out for years and years and be extremely, painstaking and financially crippling, and just a major headache for people. Yeah, he says it's Mormon land. Yeah, that's actually why, because Mormonism is a cult that destroys your brain. And anyways, that's a whole nother stream. And so yeah, so divorce, it's really not even the divorce that gets a lot of people, it's all the stuff under it that gets them, that comes along with the divorce. Because I've known people whose marriage didn't last very long, and they didn't have any kids, they didn't really have any assets, they didn't, they each had their own car that they kind of came into the marriage with or whatever, and it was over, they paid $100 or whatever, and it was over. So that's not good either, because you're still ending your marriage, but that is not, the divorce is not really what gets people. It's like where people say that the cover up was worse than the crime. So all this other stuff that comes along with divorce, that really what gets people. And so family court, child support, this is what our brother I have to learn how to abbreviate your name, because saying the whole thing all the time is a lot. It's a mouthful. But our brother over here, Jesus Christ saves. He was talking about, whatever you do, don't put a man through the child support system. I couldn't agree more. Because for one, it's unnecessary. People will say that, oh well, a man should be responsible to take care of his kids. Turns out, actually, I don't know if this is news to you, like it was news to me when I first heard this, but apparently you don't even have to put a man on child support, legally speaking, for him to do his part. Okay. And I'm all for men doing their part. Okay. It takes two to tango. So it's not good for these men to just drop off all these bastard children and run off and leave women in the dust. So I do agree that men should be responsible, but child support actually does a lot more harm than it does good. Now you might be wondering how that can be, but the thing about it is that if you and the father can just come up with your own agreement outside of court. You know that, right? Like, you guys can just agree that he's going to come over, every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, um, and every other weekend, and he's going to give you $100 a week, or, $400 a week, or whatever. And you guys can just agree on that outside, and there's no issue. Um, Now, where child support comes in is the fact that, it's legally binding. So if he doesn't, come get the son, or if he doesn't drop the son back off on a Tuesday, or doesn't pay his 400, then you can take him to court. But the thing about it is that a lot of these women don't even give the man a chance to do right. They just immediately throw him on child support. It's like, can we even just try to do this without getting the court involved? Like, can you just give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm not going to run off on you? Like, I'm all for paying my share and helping the kid and being a part of the kids' lives. Can you just at least give me a chance? Because the thing about child support is that it can be very damaging on the man, because it'll probably take more from him than he can really afford. And if he gets behind, then it'll garnish his wages, and he can go to jail. And I feel like it breeds a certain level of resentment. The fact that it's just like this very clinical, impersonal thing. And then a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, the woman, she's still kind of withholding the kid from the dad. And like, I feel like it just comes from a state of bitterness to put a man on child support. Now, like, if the man is trying to like escape and he's trying to like disappear into the wind, then sure, put him on child support so that way he can't do that. And, you're not just left holding the bag. But a lot of these men, they're not interested in abandoning their family. They're interested in abandoning you. Okay, honestly. And so the fact that he might have kids with you is not the issue. He's very much willing and ready to be involved in his kid's life. He wants to take them to practice. He wants to take them out to eat. He wants to buy them their new clothes for school. He doesn't have an issue with the kids. He has an issue with you. And so a lot of women hate that, and they can't handle that. And so they're trying to just, punish the man for leaving them by, getting him all intertangled with the family court system and getting involved with child support. And of course, the government is more than happy to oblige with that domestic squabble, because they get like, what, 40% of the money, like 40% or 60% of every dollar that changes hands through child support. So, they don't care about the kids' well-being, and they don't care about, how this is going to affect their overall dynamic of the family. They're looking to get paid. And so, friend, child support should be a very last resort thing. Okay. Kat, she puts a stat in the chat, and it says, as of 2021, top 10 states with the highest divorce is Nevada, Oklahoma, Wyoming, Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Kentucky, Mississippi, and Tennessee. What? That is news to me. Okay, I did not know that. Where's Utah? Okay, maybe my information is outdated. Okay. I thought Utah was like right up there, but apparently not. What is Alabama and Wyoming doing on this list so high? What in the world? Okay, well, thank you, Kat. So never mind, I was wrong. But yeah, and so yeah, there's a time and place for child support, but at least give the man the benefit of the doubt, that he's gonna do right. Because there are some deadbeats, but not every man is a deadbeat. Too many men get labeled deadbeats, and they're just men who are, just at the end of their rope, and trying to do things for their kids, but the baby mama's just in the way. So there's that. Counseling, and counseling, I guess, I feel like you'd be past counseling if you're already getting divorced, but I don't know exactly what he means by that. But alimony, okay? Alimony is one of the biggest scams to ever be foisted upon the American people, because why on earth should you feel like you are entitled to your same standard of living as a single woman now? Well, legally single. In the eyes of God, you're still married. But anyways, that's for a whole nother stream. Why do you feel entitled to the same standard of living as you did when you were married, as you do now that you're leaving him. And it's like, I don't understand that. That never made any sense to me. Um, once again, I can understand it for the state of the kids. The kids shouldn't have to, take a major hit in lifestyle because their parents are idiots. Um, but what does that have to do? Like that's what child support is for, okay? That's not what alimony is for. So why do people think that and nowadays men are getting alimony because now women are becoming the primary breadwinner. They can do bad all by themselves and they're gonna have to pay out that child support. Shout out to Mary J. Blige. And Beyonce's mom, who are women paying alimony. Um, but yeah, the whole concept of it is nonsensical to me because you're not entitled to the lifestyle that you had when you were married now that you're not married anymore. So, but there's that, that happens a lot. I think it was, Florida that got rid of alimony if you haven't been married for a certain amount of time. And all these middle-aged women were flipping out on the news. They were like, "What are we gonna do? Ron DeSantis is a terrorist." And it's like, "Oh, better go back to work." It's too bad you can't live off your ex-husband for the rest of your life. Sorry to hear that. And Halle Berry too. Okay, I didn't know Halle Berry ever got married. I know she has kids, but okay, apparently she got married. Okay. So she's out there paying alimony too. She had to do that movie with Mark Wahlberg that's on Netflix, to pay that alimony to keep those checks up. Oh my goodness. Next one is that you lose your kids, lose your house, lose half your assets. And this is what really traumatizes people about divorce, and some things people just don't come back from. A lot of people, sad to say, they end up deleting themselves because they're so devastated at how things happened. It's like 1 minute we were happy, we were in love, everything was great. We were adding an extension to our house. We were going to Bermuda for vacation, and the next minute she's keeping my kids away from me and she's calling me an abuser and I'm homeless. And it's like, what in the world? This person that I thought I could trust with my life, friend, your spouse should be someone that you feel that you can trust with your life. The absolute number one person in the world that you can confide in and trust and love and just put all of your faith in, they betray you. And a lot of people can't handle it. And so, like I said, a lot of men are deleting themselves. I'm sure women have done it as well. They lose their house. I mean, men live in their car, after a bad divorce sometimes. They don't have anything. They have to move in with their parents, live with a friend. And it's devastating, losing half your assets. And it's just awful, what happens to a lot of these men. And the thing is that, back in the day, I guess 50, 60 years ago, a lot of bad things would happen to women who would get thrown out like trash, in a divorce, and the man would leave her for the new model and she'd be middle-aged and no work experience and what is she supposed to do? And so that was just as wicked, two wrongs don't make a right, friend. It's not that back in the 50s, and the 40s, that men were getting rid of their wives who were perfectly good wives and they were trading in their wives, and that was bad. So now the fact that men are getting thrown away, thrown out like trash, and having their lives destroyed, that makes it okay because now it's all even. No, that's not how that works. Okay. We should live in a country that takes marriage seriously and penalizes both parties equally for divorce, and divorce should be illegal as far as I'm concerned. But like I said, when I drop the link, we can discuss that. But as far as I'm concerned, divorce should be illegal, and cheating on your spouse should get the death penalty. And all God's people said amen. So that way we can nip a lot of this in the bud and disincentivize people from getting divorced and cheating. And when people are faced with negative consequences for their actions, they straighten up. Okay. So there's that. And all of that goes on, in the disengagement phase. And, that is what, sadly, a lot of marriages fall into, everything's good. Everything's gravy. You meet, you fall in love, you get married, you start having kids, get a house, get some cars. And then your wife, turns into Mr. Hyde on you, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And she turns into a feminist, starts going out. What's that one Drake song, started wearing less and going out more. And then before you know it, she's trying to take your kids from you. And so lastly, we have the part 5, which is how you kind of recover from this, which is the GYOW, which is go your own way. So that's the way that Coach Adams recommends. He says avoid marriage to begin with, but if you're going to do it and it fails, which he says very often will fail, then just forget about it and go your own way, do your own thing, focus on your character, focus on your career, your money, bettering yourself, get in the gym, and don't worry about women anymore. Long term, that is. But a lot of people, they still hold out for love and they get remarried. And I don't defend remarriage. I think remarriage is unbiblical. I mean, I know it's unbiblical. It's not right. People should not get remarried because that's adultery. But yeah, and so around and around we go. Okay, a lot of people. And so yeah, and so that's the marriage wheel, folks. Let me make it smaller again. So yeah, that is what we see in a lot of instances and marriages. And David, you can drop the link now for anybody who is interested in popping up. But yes, how we as women, because as you can see, like I said before, it really breaks down on the women's end. Kat says it sounds like a song from Fleetwood Mac called "You Can Go Your Own Way." Hey, it might have been inspired by that. Who knows? That phrase may have been inspired from that song. But yeah. And Jesus Christ Saves, he says, only not adultery if the spouse cheated on the one leaving. I don't know what that means. Only not adultery if the spouse cheated on the one leaving. Are you saying it's not adultery if the spouse cheated on the one who's leaving the marriage? Is that what you're saying? I want to make sure I understand. But yeah. And so, yes, friends, that is the marriage wheel. And so, yeah, we as women, we need to be very mindful of these things. Let us not fall into the trap of, becoming discontented with our marriage after, 10 or, 5 or 10 years. Oh, okay. That is what you're saying. You are not committing adultery if your spouse cheated on you. So you're saying that if you get divorced and marry someone else, that you're not committing adultery if your spouse is the one who cheated on you first. That's what you're saying. Kat says, these are the states that do not enforce alimony: Texas, Mississippi, North Carolina, and Utah. Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that. Based North Carolina. Okay, they're right under me. So great job, North Carolina. And North Carolina constantly ranks as one of the states that has the happiest people. So maybe that's why. But anyways, so yeah. Anyways, I keep getting distracted. So let it not be said of God's women, of Christian women in marriage, that we are getting discontented and we're letting our boredom overtake us. Okay. Like I said, every lifestyle, it has its ups and its downs. And your marriage can get stale. I'm sure, after you've been together with that person for a long time, I'm sure things probably, aren't as fun as they used to be. You feel like this person like the back of your hand, and they're boring to you now. And I'm sure that that's true. And, I'm sure there'll come a day when I think my husband's boring. But this is good that I'm getting this information now. I'm mentally preparing myself for when that time comes, and I'll be like, okay, I am not going to fall into this trap of, thinking that there's something out there waiting for me. Because that's another thing too, is that, especially in like I said, the digital age, with Tinder and Plenty of Fish and whatever app you want to use, there's this false sense of opportunity that a lot of women get from these men in their ear, saying, oh man, you're so fine, you still got it. you look so good for your age, and your husband, I hope he's treating you right. This is another thing too, is that this is why it's very good for women not to work outside of the home a lot, or if they do, not work in a um, very genderly mixed environment, because this can often be where you'll find the person that you have your affair with is at your job. I don't know the stats on that. If maybe Kat wants to look that up, but I think that probably the number one place where people are finding their affair partner is at work, if I'm not mistaken. And so, um, but yeah, so that it's a good way to foolproof your marriage if you're just not out there to begin with. So like for me, I work, but I just work with dogs, so there's no issue there. And then my husband, thankfully, pretty much the entire time we've been married, he's worked in predominantly male-oriented jobs. So he's a mechanic, so he'll work on cars, which are usually with other men, or he'll do maintenance work where he's fixing things, and that's usually a lot of other men too. So there's that. Um, Jesus Christ Saves, he says, I'm not trying to upset any ladies in the chat, but the fantasy novels, movies portray a fake man, and if their man ain't like that fantasy man, the lady starts to resent the real man. Hey, that is a fact. Jesus Christ Saves is speaking facts right now. Um, so yeah, not only do they listen to these, chicken head women online talking about, oh, you deserve better, your man's not good enough for you, but they fill their head up with all this fake, imagery of men, and then they become disillusioned with the real man that they have. You know, they fall in love with a ghost, and they're like, oh well, this person in this book, I mean, I don't keep up with romance books, but I'm, showing my age, I guess. My husband's not as great as Edward Cullen, so I need to go find me a better husband. It's like Edward's not real, okay? These characters and these movies and these books, like I know, like Nicholas Sparks. He's the one who I think that he has the most books turned into movies ever, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong. But he's the guy who's the big romance novel guy. He's the one who wrote The Notebook, The Lucky One, Dear John. I can't think of their names, but just he's the one who writes all those really cute romantic romance books. And so these women, they often can get sucked into these movies, and they're like, oh man, like he's so perfect, why doesn't my husband want to kiss me in the rain? Why doesn't my husband want to write me letters every day? Why doesn't my husband do this? Why doesn't my husband have rock hard abs? And it's like, ma'am, you are just as soggy as he is. Stop comparing, stop putting your husband on this unrealistic pedestal and all this stuff. And so, yeah, we have to keep our eyes on the prize, and our prize is our spouse. Okay, the Bible says that we need to rejoice in the wife of our youth. So obviously, talking to men. So rejoice in the wife of your youth, and let her breasts always satisfy you all the days of your life. So neither of you are going to get better looking as you get older. Okay, so women, they're going to get, soggy, they're going to have kids, they're going to get deflated, and, hey, happens to the best of us. And then your husband, he's going to get, soggy in the midsection, and, his hair is going to thin, and, he's not going to be as good as he used to. I was at the gym just today, actually. And this guy was talking to me. It was this older guy, and he and I were chit-chatting, and he was saying that, every year he's like every year I get older, I'm not as good as I used to be, or something like that. He's like, as I get older, I'm not what I once was, or something like that. I forget exactly how he put it, but it was really funny. But yeah, he's talking about not soggy. Yes, friend, that's a CGA. He says that a lot. He's talks about these soggy women. Yeah, man. Hey, I know I'm about to have a baby, so I'm not about to look as good as I did when my husband met me. And hey, it happens. I would try to snap back, but we're human, so we just got to accept each other. and love each other for more than what's on the skin deep level. Okay. But yeah, so I'm surprised that nobody wants to come up here. But yeah, friends. And so there's that. And so I want to just leave the ladies with, some mental food for thought about how, okay, I can see that I'm becoming discontented. I can see that I'm becoming a nag. I can see that, I'm going out with my friends more than I used to. I'm, not spending as much quality time with my husband as I used to. So just spending more time with your husband is just a really good idea. Cuddling with him, snuggling with him, um, holding his hand, kissing him, just being a little bit more physical, that can always encourage, more feelings. You're releasing more oxytocin towards your husband. And that will help you guys get along better. I was watching this video, like a reel on Instagram, and it was saying like well, what was it? Man, I can't remember if it was the 6-second kiss or if it was the 6-second hug, but maybe it was the kiss, where if you kissed your spouse for 6 seconds, then that's enough time for your brain to release like a burst of oxytocin, and you feel more close to them. um but maybe it was also a hug too, I can't remember now. But just embracing your spouse and snuggling with your spouse, cuddling your spouse at night, all of that is very beneficial. It's not just something to do. It's actually, this is, for the betterment of your marriage, just for the longevity of your marriage. Doing little things like that, it's feeding into the life of your marriage. And so let us not, forget about these important little things. When you guys were dating, you guys would hold hands and snuggle and just sit up and talk to each other, talk to each other. My husband and I, we talk a lot, sometimes too much. And we're always just talking to each other about random things, stuff that pops into our mind, anything, that just comes to us. And we're just talking to each other. Like the other day, my husband, he was like, "Have you ever heard the concept that humans are actually angels?" And I said, "No, where'd you hear that?" And he was like, "I saw this reel on Instagram about it." And he was like, "I thought you would find it interesting." And I was like, "That is interesting." I mean, I don't agree with that. Um, but he was like, "Yeah, I thought, because he likes to give me ideas for things I can talk about on my show." So he was like, "Yeah, when I saw that, I thought of you." And I was like, "Oh, cool." So, we just talk about anything. And so I honestly believe, and I told my husband this, and he agreed. So this is great. But, my husband, he really trusts me. He tells me his deepest desires. He tells me what's really on his mind, how he really feels about things. And I love that. I don't always want to hear about it, depending on the thing, but it's good that he does that, because that means he really trusts me. And Proverbs 31, I don't know the verse, says that, her husband's heart does safely trust in her, that he hath no need of spoil. And so your husband's heart should be able to safely trust in you. And Coach Greg Adams would say that, never fully trust a woman, always keep her at arm's reach. And that's really sad, honestly, the fact that people can be married, for, years and never fully trust their spouse, never fully let their spouse all the way in. And that shouldn't be the case. But if you're argumentative, and if you're a grudge holder, and if you're the kind of person who throws up, something that your spouse said to you in confidence back up at them in an argument, then your spouse isn't going to be the kind of man who's going to safely trust in you. So there's a lot of work that needs to get done. A lot of room for improvement for everybody. Okay. Like I said, I have not arrived. I'm still very much a work in progress. So I say this talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you guys. And so I hope that you guys enjoyed all of this. I hope that this information was beneficial, and that you got some really good tidbits, and that you can take some things and use it in your own marriage, and help and make it stronger. And if you guys ever have any prayer requests, if you ever want me to pray for your marriage or what have you, then you can go over to my home channel, and I have in my bio my email, where you guys can always reach me at a moment's notice. I might not get back to you right away, but I will see it, and I can pray for you or what have you. And so there's that. Yes, there it is. Proverbs 31:11 says the heart of her husband does safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. So, friend, ladies, your homework for the week is to think about: does my husband's heart safely trust in me? Does my husband trust me with anything? Like, can he come to me about anything? A lot of men will say no. So there's that. And yes, friends. So I thank you for tuning in tonight. Thank you for Black Men Unfiltered for allowing me on his platform. Be sure to leave a like on your way out and leave a comment after the stream is done, so that way YouTube knows that this kind of content is great and that they need to keep our channels up, because they love to just strike people's channels down for no reason. And follow me over on my channel. We are on our upwards trend right now, and so things are looking good over there, and we are just headed right on to 700 subs. So if you are not already a Jeanette, then you got to get on that, because why aren't you a Jeanette already? But anyways, friends, I appreciate you all tuning in, and I look forward to talking to you again, not next week, but the week after next, with a new topic over here on Candid Conversations with a Housewife. Bye.